Full Contact Podcast, buckle up, you heard, like, follow, and share. Lycoming, you heard, we dare. Pulses of the Portland, why do people leave? Crank up the truth with Beth and Steve.
Welcome back to Lycoming, ya heard. I'm Steve Marshall.
And I'm Beth Fulmer.
This time, we're going local for a story that's got everyone talking right here in Lycoming County. It's about, transparency in government, a controversial meeting that happened, and one man's really going the distance to get some answers.
Yeah, and this all started with, a pretty common thing. It started with a right-to-know request. That's something that every citizen has the right to use to access public records. But, in this case, it was denied, and the whole situation surrounding the denial has got a lot of people asking some questions.
So the guy at the center of all this is Tony J. Cooper, and he is not giving up. He's actually appealing the denial and wants our county officials to be more transparent. So what actually happened here? What information was he even asking for, and why would they deny him?
So he was looking for information about a meeting between the Lycoming County Commissioners and their Office of Human Resources. And this supposedly took place back on September 14th, 2023. He requested any minutes, like notes, recordings, really anything that just showed what was discussed.
Seems like a pretty straightforward request, especially when you're talking about a meeting of public officials. So what did the county say?
The county's response: no records exist.
No records exist. Mm-hmm. That's a little hard to believe, especially for like a formal meeting, right? What evidence does Cooper have that this meeting actually happened?
Well, the main thing he has is a video. It's a recording of the county commissioners meeting that happened on that same day, September 14th. Lucky for us, this meeting was recorded, and it's up on YouTube.
The benefits of technology. So what does it show?
Well, the video shows the meeting wrapping up at 59.01, but it keeps recording, right? And then a few seconds later, 59.14, Commissioner Musar, he turns to Commissioner Mirabito and says, "Hey, Commissioner, we're going to have that HR meeting in 15 minutes.
Okay, so we've got them on video saying that they're going to have this meeting with HR. What makes Cooper think it should be, an official record?
So Pennsylvania's right-to-know law states that anything considered a transaction of the agency is a public record unless there's like a specific exemption, right?
So for people like me who aren't lawyers, what does transaction of the agency actually mean?
It basically means anything they do, any action activity. It's super broad. It covers meetings, emails, decisions, even just things they agree on verbally.
So Cooper's arguing that, okay, maybe there weren't minutes or whatever, but the fact that the commissioners were talking about this HR meeting, planning it on record, means it falls into that right-to-know law.
Exactly. He's saying, look, Musar's saying that wasn't just casual talk, right? This shows it was thought out, planned in advance, so something must have happened before, some communication to set it up, and that needs to be documented.
And the county's basically saying, nope, nothing. So what could this mean? This feels like kind of a big deal, more than just one meeting, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because if they get away with denying this request, just by saying no records exist, it sets a bad example for government transparency. Mm-hmm. Not just here in Lycoming County, but it could even affect the whole state.
And this is where it gets really interesting. To see why Cooper is so set on getting these records, we've got to go back a couple days before this meeting. Look at what led up to it.
So Cooper's been pretty vocal, especially about the Lycoming County prison. He's gone to public meetings, talked about concerns, especially about the prison's anti-discrimination policies.
So he's speaking out publicly. Then a few days later, we've got this mysterious HR meeting, and they say there's no record of it.
Yeah, I can see why I'd be a little suspicious.
And get this, on the same day as that county commissioners meeting, Cooper actually had an interview. It was with the Lycoming County Chief Public Defender for a shadowing position.
To shadow the public defender. Interesting. How'd that go?
Well, he got really positive feedback from the Chief Public Defender, but then just a few days later, HR rejected his application, and they didn't say why.
So hold on. He speaks out at a meeting, then tries to shadow the public defender, gets rejected by HR. That timing seems a bit too perfect to be a coincidence, doesn't it? And let's go back to that county commissioner meeting on September 14th, the one where they're talking about the HR meeting, because this is where things get really wild.
What happened?
So, as they're having this whole conversation about the HR meeting, Cooper himself is right outside the room getting ready to leave.
Yeah.
He gets taken into custody by a Lycoming County sheriff. Turns out there's a warrant out for his arrest.
Wow, that's a twist. What was the warrant for?
The court documents don't say, but what's interesting is how Commissioner Mirabito reacts in the video. He looks surprised, even asks Massar, "What'd you do?"
Okay, now I'm getting lost.
Yeah.
So we have this guy who's, speaking out against the county, tries to shadow the public defender, gets rejected, and then while they're discussing this secret HR meeting, he gets arrested. It's hard to believe that's all just a coincidence.
It's, yeah, a lot to take in, and Cooper thinks these things are connected. He thinks, maybe that HR meeting was about him, at least partly, and that him getting arrested might not have been a coincidence.
Yeah. I got to say, the timing of it all is definitely a little bit suspicious to me, too. It seems like every time he tries to do something, he hits a wall. But he's not giving up, right? He's filed an appeal. It's with the Pennsylvania Office of Open Records, and he's fighting that denial.
Right. And he's saying, look, that video is proof. Proof that something happened, a transaction of the agency, so there have to be records. And he's even saying there might be other stuff, too, not just about the meeting, like emails, texts, even just notes someone jotted down.
So he's looking for anything, any little thing that might help explain what this meeting was really about. What's the county saying about his appeal?
Well, so far they're not really talking about the video. They're just sticking with that same response. No records exist.
Sounds like we've got a real standoff here. Cooper's saying there was a meeting, wants the records, and the county is like, nothing to see here, move along.
And it's up to the Pennsylvania Office of Open Records now. They get to decide who's right. They could actually order the county to turn over those records if they think Cooper's appeal is legit.
This feels really big, not just for Cooper, but for anyone who wants the government to be open and honest. What kind of message does it send if they side with the county?
It could be really bad. It would basically mean government agencies can hide things from the public just by saying, nope, no records, even when there's proof that's not true.
So, pretty high stakes then. This could change how right-to-know requests are handled everywhere in the state.
Yeah, it could even make people less likely to even bother filing them. If you think the government's not going to be honest anyway, why even try? And that just leads to less trust and makes it harder to hold our leaders accountable.
This really shows how important it is to know your rights, The right-to-know law seems kind of complicated, but it's there to protect us, to make sure our government is open and honest.
It's definitely worth learning about, even if you don't think you'll need it. You never know when you might. This whole thing makes you wonder, right? What else is going on that we don't know about? Makes you want to file a bunch of those requests just to see.
We've been focusing a lot on the legal side of things, but let's not forget about the people involved. Cooper isn't just some case file. He's part of our community. He's someone who's been directly affected by what our local government is doing.
You're right. It's easy to get caught up in all the legal talk and rules. But this is about real people and their lives. It's about making sure our government is working for the people, not the other way around.
It's about fairness too, right? If there's nothing to hide, why not just be open about it? I mean, why would our local government be so against sharing information about a simple meeting? It just makes you wonder.
Definitely makes you question their motives. And it damages that trust between the government and the people, which is kind of essential for a democracy to actually work,
You have to admire Cooper's persistence though, right? He just keeps going. It shows that even one person can stand up and make a difference, even when it's hard.
And he's bringing attention to something bigger, too. The need for more transparency in government, more accountability. This isn't just happening here, it's happening all over. People want to know what their leaders are doing, and they want a say in how things are run.
This whole deep dive into what's going on with these meetings in Lycoming County has been really revealing. It shows the problems in our system and how important it is for people to be involved. And it definitely leaves us with some questions like, what's the Office of Open Records going to decide? Will the county have to say what happened at that meeting? And what does this mean for the future of, open government, not just in our county, but everywhere? We'll have to see what happens. But yeah, this isn't over yet. So for the folks in Lycoming County who are listening, what are the big takeaways from all this?
It's a good reminder that we have a right to know what our government's doing. This right to know law, it's not just some fancy legal thing. It's a way for us to, keep our officials in check, make sure they're actually working for us.
And it's especially important here, at the local level, right? These are the decisions that affect our everyday lives, our schools, our roads, whether we feel safe in our own community.
Exactly. And sometimes it's at this local level where, people try to keep things quiet. Like maybe they think it's easier to get away with things in a smaller place, but that just means we need to be even more careful, ask more questions, and not be afraid to demand answers.
So what can people do if they, think something's off with their local government?
Well, first thing is, Don't be afraid to say something. Go to those public meetings. Speak your mind. Ask those questions. You have every right to. And if you don't like the answers you're getting, that's when that right to know law comes in handy.
So if someone thinks, let's say, a meeting happened or a decision was made, and they want to know more, they can just file one of those requests.
Yep, and it doesn't have to be some big formal meeting, with agendas and minutes. Even a conversation between officials, like what we saw in that video, that could be considered a transaction of the agency, and they'd have to share it.
And what happens if they say no?
Don't give up. I mean, look at Cooper. You can appeal, take it to the Office of Open Records, and if you're not sure how to do all that, there's help out there. Legal aid groups, even just friends or neighbors who've done it before.
This whole deep dive has been a real learning experience for me, and I hope it has been for our listeners too. It shows how we really need to fight for transparency in government right here at home.
Yeah, and it shows how much power we have as individuals. Tony Cooper's story is a great example of that. When we stand up for what's right and hold our leaders accountable, we can make a real difference.
It reminds us that, we're not just bystanders in all this. We have a say in how our community is run. We need to make sure it's fair, open, and that our leaders are working for us, not the other way around.
So think about it. What's going on in your town, your city? Are there decisions being made that affect you? Do you have questions that need answering? Don't be shy. Dig a little deeper. Ask those questions. Maybe even file one of those right-to-know requests yourself. You might be surprised by what you find out.
That's some great advice to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back next time with another story. And as always, keep asking questions, stay informed, and stay involved in your community.
The shore has no snooky, that's the word. And Missy Lane's sugar cookies slap, you heard. Like, follow, and share. Lycoming, you heard, we dare. Pulses of the port, and why do people leave? Crank up the truth with Beth and Steve.